Today we're going to look at the facts in the killing of Rayshard Brooks. Welcome to the channel. My name is Nate Broady, former prosecutor, former Leo, and today we're going to talk about the killing of Rayshard Brooks. He's a black male, 27 years old, killed by police in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, he was armed with a taser, and the question is whether the shooting of Mr. Brooks was justified by law enforcement and whether the officer should be charged or not. Now, to figure this out, we're not going to deal with fantasy. We're going to deal with facts. We're going to look at the Atlanta Police Department's policy on use of force through their standard operating procedures. We're also going to look at the current case law from the Supreme Court of Georgia, and we're going to look at how the district attorney has handled cases like this in the past, where someone has a taser and is threatening someone else's life. Just to be clear, we're going to look at facts, not fantasy. Now, I'm going to need you to bear with me for a second as we go through first the policy, the law, and the way the prosecutors have handled these cases in the past. And then we're going to apply what we now know about the policy and about the law to the circumstances of Mr. Brooks. Our first stop is the Atlanta Police Department's standard operating procedure. Now, every department has a standard operating procedure that lists things like use of force policies, dress codes, and so forth for every individual officer. The standard operating procedures for the Atlanta Police Department can be found at the link in the description below. Let's read the policy. The policy that was in effect at the time of the shooting says an employee may use deadly force to apprehend a suspected felon only when 1. He or she reasonably believes that the suspect possesses a deadly weapon or any object or instrument which, when used offensively against the person, is likely to or actually does result in serious bodily injury, and when he or she reasonably believes that the suspect possesses an immediate threat of serious bodily injury to the officer or others. Now, here we want to focus in on deadly weapon. Well, in the case of Mr. Rayshard Brooks, he was armed with a taser. So, is a taser under Georgia law considered a deadly weapon? Well, now let's do an inquiry on the use of tasers under Georgia law and whether they are considered deadly weapons. So to do that, I want to take you back to an incident that had occurred earlier this month. This is a video of college students who were tased in an excessive force video where all 6 officers were charged. The video is shocking, but it's important that we see the video so we can see what the officers did, and then we'll look at the district attorney's comments and see what offenses these officers were charged with and why the officers were charged.
The 6 officers accused of using excessive force have until Friday to turn themselves in. In the middle of the chaos that was tearing through downtown Atlanta Saturday night, and in pictures now viewed across the world, the officers are seen shooting a stun gun at 2 college students and dragging them out of a car. Messiah Young and Tanaya Pilgrim were out after the new curfew, explaining that they were just getting something to eat when they got stuck in traffic during a protest.
So now you've seen the incident. Now we're going to look at Paul L. Howard Jr. He's the Fulton County District Attorney that covers Atlanta. Now he's going to explain to us exactly what the charges are. And he's also going to tell us whether tasers are considered deadly weapons under Georgia law.
Presented to one of our Superior Court judges 6 arrest warrants for these 6 officers. These are all Atlanta officers, and I'm sure you recognize that 2 of these officers have already been terminated by the Atlanta Police Department. And what we've done is to just in a shorthand method describe the charges against those officers. Lonnie Hood, who's charged with aggravated assault of Messiah Young for the use of the taser, the aggravated assault of Tanaya Pilgrim, also for the use of the taser, and also a simple battery for pulling Ms. Pilgrim out of the car onto the paved street. The second officer is Willie Sauls, and charged with aggravated assault of Ms. Pilgrim, and this is for pointing a taser at Mrs. Pilgrim. And as many of you all know, under Georgia law, a taser is considered as a deadly weapon under Georgia law.
So the current DA is charging the officers with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And that deadly weapon is a taser, which the district attorney has said is a deadly weapon under Georgia law.
And as many of you all know, under Georgia law, a taser is considered as a deadly weapon under Georgia law.
Now, this also aligns with the Georgia Supreme Court's ruling in 2019 in a case called Eberhart v. State. An officer was charged with both felony murder and aggravated assault with the use of a deadly weapon. His deadly weapon was a taser. Now, to make a long story short, a black man was running from the police and eventually ran down a hill near an embankment near a creek. He fell and was captured by officers. He started complaining that he couldn't walk and got very tired. So the officers didn't want to carry him back up the embankment. So when a couple of supervisors got there, they pulled out their tasers and tased the victim as an incentive to have him walk up the hill. Eventually, after being tased 14 times, the victim died. He died because he was tased to death. Well, one of the cops who was convicted challenged the fact that the taser was a deadly weapon. Now, in that case, the court upheld the conviction, saying that a taser could cause serious physical injury or even death, as it had in this case. And it was appropriate for a taser to be considered as a deadly weapon under Georgia law, and the conviction was upheld. So simply put, the taser used in this case was sufficient to satisfy the deadly weapon requirement under the Georgia law. And that case was 2019. Now we know a couple of things. We know the police department policy. Officers can use deadly physical force when a suspect has a deadly weapon and is threatening the officer's safety. The law also considers a taser to be a deadly weapon. And the district attorney has applied that standard of a taser being a deadly weapon in other cases.
And as many of you all know, under Georgia law, a taser is considered as a deadly weapon under Georgia law.
Now, this video is going to be demonetized because of the content, because of the videos I'm showing you, and because of the facts that I'm presenting to you. Now, I can only bring you this type of in-depth review of both police policy and law with your support. Now, you can support the mission through channel memberships, Patreon, or PayPal. Those links are in the description. Now, your support is going to allow me to continue to bring you this in-depth legal analysis both on police policy and the law without the YouTube algorithm hating me. Now, let's get back to the facts. So, now, let's apply everything that we've heard to the situation that we have in front of us now. Understanding a taser is a deadly weapon under Georgia law. Now, as you can see in the video, the officer gives Mr. Brooks a sobriety test. He failed that sobriety test, and he's attempting to place handcuffs on Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks struggles and now is resisting arrest. During that resistance, he gets free from the officers, grabs one of the officers' tasers, and then runs. The next video shows the officer chasing him with the taser in hand. Mr. Brooks turns, points the taser at the officer, and the officer then fires 2 shots, killing Mr. Brooks. Now, at this point, what do we know? Mr. Brooks had a deadly weapon under Georgia law. This has been defined by both the Georgia Supreme Court, the district attorney. The standard operating procedure authorizes deadly physical force to be used when a suspect has a deadly weapon and attempts to use that deadly weapon against the officer. So the question now for you is that you know the policy from the police department. You've seen the video from what happens. And now you know the law.
And As many of you all know, under Georgia law, a taser is considered as a deadly weapon under Georgia law.
From both the district attorney and the Supreme Court of Georgia. So now I'm going to ask you, was this shooting justified? Meaning, was the officer following both departmental policy and the law when he shot Mr. Brooks? Or whether this officer is a criminal, meaning that this force was excessive based on both the policy and the law? I leave it to you in the comment section. Now, this is an awful tragedy. What happened to Mr. Brooks? It just is. Do I believe that this arrest could have been done in a different way? Yes. Do I think Mr. Brooks should have lost his life? No. But with that said, it's your job as the jury to decide whether this was lawful, whether this officer acted under departmental policy and under the law in Georgia. Now, if you believe the law and the policy should change, that's a different conversation. But as the law is now, do you believe this officer acted outside the scope of his authority? That's the question for you. My name is Nate, lawyer, YouTuber, and I'll see you next time.